to the Sports Den. I'm here with Obi Spencer and Brandon K. As usual. No Scott tonight, so just the three of us. How you folks doing tonight?
Oh, I'm great. I am great. Looking forward to the next month and a half of basketball. I hope I get to watch that long.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an exciting. I know some people dog on the NBA playoffs for a multitude of reasons, but regardless of that, I think it's going to be a good tournament nonetheless.
Yes, and a quick shout out to Ryan, Devion, and Kyle for holding down the fort last week with their WrestleMania recap episode. They did a fantastic job. We'll see if we can do other similar episodes for other big wrestling events throughout the year. We'll see what happens, but thanks again. They did a great job. All right, so this week, as Brandon said, the NBA playoffs starting with as Brandon calls it, April foolishness. The idiotic the play-in games, which are so important that the Dallas Mavericks decided it was not worth their time and blatantly tanked so they wouldn't have to possibly get in and risk losing their draft pick. When a draft pick is more important than making this joke of a system, that tells you all you need to know right there.
I will start with harassing the Mavericks then, because I've looked into it, and team players who win a title who are drafted as a lottery pick, which is what they were trying to get, only win with the team that's drafted. Remember, this is just players that have won, like 16% of the time. And if you get one of the top three picks, the team that drafts them only wins with the player that drafted 1, 2, or 3 only wins their first championship with the team that drafted them, like 5%. And so the last guy to do it was Kyrie, and obviously, and LeBron does not count in that because he did go to Miami to win his first one and then came back. So these draft
does he count for the Cleveland championship since it was technically the team?
Well, what about Giannis?
Giannis is not a top 3 pick.
You said top 3.
So it's like 15%, and then it gets even smaller. So I think trying to get a draft pick is overvalued. I think NBA teams overvalue those draft picks because yes, NBA is very good at picking out who's good. Problem is they're not good enough to win a championship and old enough to win a championship until they at the end of their first contract they can move on to wherever they want. A la AD says, I'm not going to win one in here and go over to LA and win one. So it's I think that they made a mistake. They made a mistake when they trade for Kyrie, obviously, and not being in the playoffs. That's at least one home game that they, among 2 games they're not going to get, and they look like crap.
Yeah, and they intentionally rested all their starters, and I understand that the long-term development that getting the 10th pick versus possibly playing 1 or 2 games and losing and ending up right in the same spot without a first round pick, that long-term play it is better, but to have to intentionally lose games to get it in the way that they did, that's a terrible look and further shows how devalued that the NBA regular season has gotten by now, where just there is absolutely nothing going for these teams in the middle of the pack, even the ones that that get in as 6, 7, 8 seeds, losing the first round for what? It's a really tough sell to get excited about these games. Although Brandon, now that your team is in, you famously coined the April foolishness term last season, and that's where your Heat are this week. So have your thoughts changed?
No, it is as ridiculous as ever, but let's not forget they are the 7th seed, which would still be a traditional playoff seed nonetheless, had this April foolishness not come to fruition. So, I mean, if they were the 9 or 10 seed, I might be like, like I do have that integrity. But to the Kyrie and the Mavericks point, it's just very interesting. Between the two of you, can you name the teams that Kyrie has been on for me?
Cleveland, Boston,
let me
Brooklyn.
check. Cleveland. Okay, yeah, they're in the playoffs.
Boston,
Cleveland, Boston, Brooklyn.
And Brooklyn.
That's interesting. Yeah, Boston is also in the playoffs.
And Brooklyn.
And Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. Yeah, Brooklyn too. And what's that other team that is so tied to the Mavericks because of other trades and other players switching jerseys? That would be the New York
Atlanta.
Knicks, correct?
And
The
also
Knicks,
the
right?
Knicks,
With
yeah.
Porzingis, Jalen Brunson, that whole saga. They are also in the playoffs. So for a traditional playoff, half of the real playoff seedings in the East are tied to either Kyrie or something a team has done in relation to Kyrie in terms of the Mavericks. It's just I was very, and I said this when this happened, that if there was one person that, yes, maybe he plays it off because of, for the looks and the optics of it, but the one person that I thought would be so pissed off when this news came out was Luka Doncic. And to watch them and to watch him, who Giannis and Luka, other than LeBron, are my two favorite players in the league. And to watch Luka kind of, it's not an unraveling because it's not exactly that type of a situation, but to kind of see him not be himself, it's kind of, you can either say it's either directly related to the Kyrie situation, or if it's not, I mean, is it a coincidence? So I really think this Kyrie situation and to go from the 4 seed to out of April foolishness, you're not even a fool at that point. You're lower than the fools. I just think is a collapse that I think is historically might be looked upon not favorably because I don't know how many people are really like calling this for what it is. This was a total collapse. And
Go ahead.
and for Mark Cuban to make the moves that he had done in these last few months, very unlike him. He usually is very smart with decision making. Dallas is a nice free agent destination. He is a very good owner, cares about his team maybe more than any other owner in the league. And so it was very surprising to see this downfall in Dallas and to watch the other teams that are connected to this kind of flourish. It's just very interesting to see.
So I read a great article. I wish I could give the author some credit. The bottom line is Kyrie may not make your team worse, but he certainly doesn't make it better. I mean, essentially when you did the math on points per 100 possessions, they improved the Mavericks by like 2 points per 100 possession, but gave up 2.2 points more per 100 possessions. And they were a team that was kind of right on the cusp, and that was just enough to make them slip. So, I mean, I think the Cuban took a shot at 4 wasn't good enough. I want to win this thing. It's worth a shot. I will be boggled if he signs him long term. As where that goes, because yes, Cuban is a people seem to want to play for. Although Brunson couldn't get out of there fast enough, so maybe not. Maybe the Magic's worn off.
And funny you touch on Brunson because that was actually the point I was about to bring up. Where while Kyrie, understandably and rightfully gets a lot of heat for this collapse, part of it is the fact that part of the Mavericks' downfall was how they were really playing above their weight class last season because of the play of Jalen Brunson. Brunson, of course, is now with the Knicks since they signed him to a better offer. So aside from Brunson for a few months last year, the Mavericks have been struggling and have clearly gotten increasingly more desperate, just trying to put a second star next to Doncic. Where they tried it with Porzingis, that didn't work. Brunson walked. Now they were trying Kyrie just to see if he could put him over the hump when the entire league knew that was a bad idea. Although Kyrie's play hasn't been the only reason for the Mavericks to hit the skids down the stretch as much as they have. They were just playing, in retrospect, they were playing in a way that was just not sustainable over the course of the season, especially in the craziness of the Western Conference, where there were so many teams that were bunched up. So 4th to 11th sounds terrible, but when the difference between 4th to 11th is like 6 games, it isn't as bad if you look into it, but it's still pretty darn bad. And the Mavericks look pathetic, especially when they got to a point where they were saying where they made the calculated and correct from a long-term planning perspective of, tanking for this draft pick is better for our long-term future than possibly making it scraping into the play-in as a 10th seed. And it looks bad for the franchise. Mark Cuban is not normally one of the clueless owners. I mean, people, it's a debate back and forth as far as how much time he spends in the public eye versus running the team. But nobody could say that Cuban is just laying back and cashing checks like some other owner, like too many owners in professional sports do. He's very much involved. But sometimes it just doesn't work out. And it blew up in a way that was worse. We had an episode where we talked almost the entire episode about how this is a terrible idea, and it ended up being even worse than we thought.
Yes. I mean, so I'm gonna take this back away from Kyrie Irving, and first I would like to thank Miami for not catching Brooklyn, because as a Sixer fan, I don't. Miami scares me more than any other team other than Milwaukee. Like, I'm very happy with where the Sixers are. I like to play Brooklyn. I like the chances against Boston, and maybe something weird happens to Milwaukee in the first 2 rounds, and the Sixers have their opportunity. So that's my path for the Sixers. What's your path for Miami?
The thing with Miami, though, as opposed to the other, that 7-8 matchup, I think is the hardest individual path in the East. Okay, because if you win that, you go against Boston in the first round right away. That's tough. Boston's expected to at least make a lot of people's finals, and if not win. Okay, now we all think Brooklyn is going to lose to Philly. So then you go Boston to now Philly in the second round, who's going to have an MVP, who's a defensive monster and an extremely tough team. Same thing. A lot of people expect this team to either win the East or win the finals in general. And then again, all of us are assuming that Milwaukee, or expecting, I should say, Milwaukee, not a cakewalk, but a much easier path to the conference finals. So right now, that 7-8 matchup is going to go realistically Boston to Philly to Milwaukee. I mean, that's ridiculously tough.
Brutal.
But out of any of these foolish teams in the East, bias aside, I do think Miami has the best chance based on what they traditionally do in the playoffs, based on how mentally sound they are as a team, how well they can play defensively, how well they can shoot on any given night. But I'm not worried about this Atlanta matchup, but just from right out of the gate from that, it's going to be tough. And I give them a chance as well as anybody, but it's like I said, it's going to be a gauntlet. But yeah, I think it's going to be a tough road for them.
Miami's also matched up well against Boston in the past few years.
Yeah.
So there is some hope there, but it's I don't know the season record, how Miami's played against Atlanta this year, but on paper that shouldn't be close, but anything can happen in one game. But if there's anybody that can can really give Boston fits in the first round, I think it is Miami. So there is a chance there, and that would be, as far as I'm concerned, the first real first round upset that in the NBA playoffs in years. Like,
And
I
that-
can't think of anything like any outside of a 4-5 matchup, which could go either way. I don't remember the last time where there was a true low seed upset.
Maybe the Warriors.
What
The
seed
Baron
was?
Davis Warriors over the top seed Mavericks.
What seed was the
That was
Mavericks?
a 1-8.
Yeah, that was years ago. What seed was the Mavericks last year?
But they were a 4 seed though.
Mavericks.
So, and that was a second round upset.
Okay.
So yes, that was an upset as far as a low seed beating a higher seed, but that was in the second round.
What about? I'm just trying to. I agree with you. I'm just trying to, like. I wish we had everything. I thought, was Denver the first year that they actually got in the playoffs, and Murray was all world. Was that a lower seed, a significant lower seed? Again, those are some of the ones that were big stories. I wish I don't have the. But
Yeah.
overall, you're right. It doesn't happen in the NBA playoffs. A 6 is generally a huge upset, right? A 7 or 8 winning is
Right.
unheard of, and
It's happened, but it hasn't in a while.
right.
Now, and let's remember, those two teams matched up in the conference finals last year, and Jimmy Butler is a 3 away from taking the Heat back to the NBA finals.
Yes.
Which in an East that has been run before the Brooklyn blow up, had been run by Giannis, Embiid, you could say Durant, Kyrie. The Heat would have been to 2 out of the last 4 finals, going back to the bubble.
Right.
So again, I give them as much a chance as anybody, but it's going to be so tough. But you can clearly tell that this East is 1, 2, 3, and then a toss up underneath that.
Yeah.
I would not say the same about the West, though. I mean, I'm looking at the West going, well, if the Lakers handle Minnesota tonight, then they could go and handle Ja Morant and his craziness just because of maturity. And then if it's Sacramento,
It's not even
great.
2. Let's remember, it's the other guys too.
Yeah. Oh no. And then, oh, by the way, did Sacramento hold on off Golden State, or does Golden State learn to win on the road? And then you got Lakers gold. Like, you can see any of the. Like, I don't see Minnesota, New Orleans, or Oklahoma City making noise, but if the Lakers can definitely make some noise, and especially if they win the first game and don't have to go to Denver. Otherwise, I think Denver's happy to get the Lakers earlier before they start to get really rolling. And of course, Lakers need to stay healthy because they're just 1/2 a centimeter away of Anthony Davis landing on somebody's foot and not playing for the rest of the playoffs.
Now, is it crazy to think that the Lakers can at least get to the Western Conference Finals? Because Minnesota, they got teammates punching themselves, and they're suspended now. So that's,
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, that's
Minnesota's
a
a
blow
mess.
ups. We know Memphis. We know the history with that team, and I
Right.
think the Lakers are going to be so heavily focused and tunnel vision on taking care of business and trying to have Memphis almost beat themselves while trying not to get involved in all the BS that goes along with them. And then after that, you would have Sacramento, that we have no idea what they're going to do in the playoffs because we haven't seen them in damn near 2 decades.
Right.
And then Golden State,
And
yes,
they're playing
they're the defending
in the
champions.
first round.
Right, yes. And then you have Golden State, the defending champions, but they can't win on the road. I mean, Jesus. And even at home, it's not a guarantee. I mean, look, and these guys are up there. You never know with health. That's always for anybody. Again, that's not a guarantee. And then the other side, you have the Clippers and Phoenix in the first round. Paul George is out. Okay, and we don't know when he's exactly coming back. And Denver, I mean, they in the playoffs, they still have some question marks that need to be answered. So again, it's not crazy to think that the Lakers on the Western side can get to the Western Conference Finals.
I agree wholeheartedly. That Memphis Sacramento at 2-3, it just screams Golden State and the Lakers getting through, right? And if that happens, and Denver Phoenix has a crazy clash that goes 7 games and are exhausted, And on the other hand, Golden State can't win on the road, and the Lakers take care of business, or Golden State figures out how to win on the road and crushes the Lakers. That team I can see coming out after a 5-game series, going up against an exhausted, beaten up Denver or Phoenix and winning this thing. It's not crazy. It's a weird breakup. And all assumes, by the way, the Lakers win tonight, or not tonight, on Tuesday. I mean, I think if they have to go against Denver for 7 games in the first round, Denver will take care of them. But if not, yeah, I think the West is crazy open.
Yeah, I was just looking back at the playoff brackets for the past few years to answer our earlier question as far as when was the last actual low seed upset. 2018, 6 seed Pelicans swept 3 seed Portland.
Oh, wow.
So it's been 5 years since any actual low seed, and when I say low seed, I mean 6 seed or less, won a first round playoff game. And I agree. We could easily see 2 of those in the West this year with how that's shaken out. I think Warriors are over Sacramento for sure. I wanted to give Sacramento more credit, but this is the first time in the playoffs for anybody on that team, and experience matters at this level. So, but also with Golden State and their struggles with the Warriors, that could go either way. But I think experience wins out, and the Warriors. I agree that the Warriors get to the second round, and if the Lakers do beat Minnesota like they should to get that 7 seed, and you have a Lakers Memphis matchup, Lakers absolutely could take that, because I never know what you're gonna get from Memphis in any given night. As
on or off the court.
Off the court issues aside, they're such a Jekyll and Hyde team. You don't really know what you're going to get, and if there's anybody that can take advantage of that, it's the Lakers when they have everybody healthy and actually firing on all cylinders. Which, yes, that's been rare the past few years, but it's possible.
And the Lakers are healthy now, right? And Phoenix is, and Phoenix is healthy now, and Denver is healthy now, and Golden State, well, they're not. Did Wiggins come back? I mean, I got confused. I was trying to follow the news, and
but he's kind of being a little bit, eased in a little bit.
Okay.
So, I mean, health-wise, yes, it's still just a kind of a head in the game situation at that point.
Okay.
They're just still working them up to game speed. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think this is such a big game for the Lakers against Minnesota. Bigger than I think Miami is for Atlanta. Because I think if Miami loses and then gets in as the 8, there's a certain ease, by the way. I think, as you mentioned, play Milwaukee, then get Cleveland, New York, and then the winner of Boston, Philadelphia. Like, if you're going to have to beat Milwaukee essentially to get in, so maybe play them in the first round and get them before they're hot and rolling. So, like, Miami, it's not even – I think you always want to play the lower-seeded team just because. But if Miami were to lose and then win and go in as 8, it's not nearly as devastating as for the Lakers with that, because there is that gap. It's Denver, and then I don't feel confident until I get to Phoenix, right? It's like Memphis and Sacramento, young, low playoff inexperience, and the team with the more playoff inexperience, they're not grounded. That's a team you look at and go, they need a coach who's going to say, go get the guy go sign him off New York and get the old defensive minded coach who gives no quorum into Memphis. But not that they're going to do that.
And whoever wins that Clippers Phoenix first round 4-5 matchup, they have a much easier path. If they, because Denver, where they'd only have to play either Denver or and whoever survives that 2-3-7-8 madness, and with Durant coming back from injury, and they're healthy now, it's definitely the West is so wide open. where really you could make an argument for or against any one of these teams just about.
Agreed. I mean, like, I think it is fascinating that the East feels like 1, 2, 3, and we'll see how they end up matching up. We expect our regular. Maybe you get New York over Cleveland because sometimes the 4 beats the 5, and then the West. It's like, okay, after April Foolishness, we're as close as we're going to get to March Madness in the NBA playoffs that we're going to see in quite some time, and probably not again for a long time. Like, it is the most exciting playoff matchup. Like, every year people try to talk you into 6 can beat a 5, or 6 can beat a 3, or maybe even a 7 can beat a 2.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't happen, right? Like we said, way back when you guys remembered the year when Dallas lost. That was the last 8-1, and I don't see anyone touching Denver in the first round. I don't care which one of these teams is there. Denver is solidly coached team with great players. Put the pressure of the second round and the finals on them, and let's see how they do. But I don't think even the Lakers, 100% healthy, are going to take Denver in the first round with no real pressure on Denver in the best of 7 series. They're going to have to wait for some nicks and bumps and stuff into the second round.
Yeah. And at least in the 90s and early 2000s, there was a bit of an element of randomness to the first round of the NBA playoffs with the 5-game series. But since I believe it's coming up on 15, 20 years now since they moved it to the 7-game series, and since then it's been pretty chalk, with the only exception I can think of, as off the top of my head, as you said, Obi, was that Dallas Golden State series, and that was in 2007. So it's been a while.
And then before that, the Knicks upsetting my Heat as a top seed in route.
But that was a 5-game series.
Yes.
2 years in a row. 2 years in a row. That was fun as a Knicks fan.
Wait, a point. Well, I actually wanted to make 2 points, because the interesting thing is, the first point is, I think you could make an argument for every single first round matchup, except for the number 1 seeds, depending on how the foolishness plays out. Every first round matchup has its own storyline, right? Because you have, let's just say it's Heat. It's Heat Celtics first round. That's your conference finals rematch. A lot of eyes are going to be on that. Then you go to Sixers in Brooklyn, the whole James Harden drama, the whole, that whole saga. Then you have Cavs and Knicks, the Donovan Mitchell wanting to go to the Knicks and then ending up with Cleveland.
If you look at who the Knicks would have given up in that trade, versus who they kept, it's basically the core of their team this year. So if the Knicks actually pulled the trigger on this trade, the Knicks probably aren't even in the playoffs.
Right. And then I think if let's say Miami loses against the Hawks and get past either Toronto or Chicago, that first round matchup, it's not going to be really like a storyline in any real kind of sense like that. And then over to the West, I mean, unless the Lakers were to lose to the Timberwolves, you would have that first round matchup, which was just the LeBron Lakers factor is interesting. But then let's say Minnesota, you would have Minnesota, Memphis. Remember their series last year, how back and forth that dogfight was, right? That would be a rematch. And then we have just the Sacramento Kings making it to the playoffs for the first time in so long. The Golden State defending the championship aspect. And then, I guess, Kevin Durant in Phoenix and trying to get an actual championship in that situation. I think it's just very interesting. You don't really get these storylines and a lot of these very almost meaningful matchups in the first round, right? A lot of times people especially kind of poo-poo the first round and really wait till we get to the second round and then kind of trim the fat on these playoff seedings. And then I did want to do we want to make our finals pick?
Our finals pick. I'm barely able to make a pick on the April
Yeah.
Foolishness.
We can,
Well,
I mean, I don't have a pick yet because I will say this: as of right now, my picks would still be with my heart.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna right now just looking at it. All right. My Sixers are gonna find a way, and then I'm very torn on this Phoenix team because I mean, can we please get Chris Paul a championship? This man has had so many great playoff runs just end on injuries. On the other hand, do I want to see Durant get one here? Like I'm very torn,
Right.
but I'm gonna go with
Mhm.
okay, go Phoenix. For now,
Yeah. I have similar feelings about Phoenix.
I could tell the minute I put on Chris on Phoenix.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot there. Then
Yeah.
No, but I agree with regarding the Suns, where it'd be cool to see Chris Paul get one, but I don't really want to see Durant win out. Although it would be hilarious salt in the wound for the Nets, which I could probably get on board with that.
yeah.
My only finals pick is that the Knicks make that the Sixers follow the path of all the other Philly sports teams this year, make the finals and lose.
That would be too fitting. I don't know if a city can handle that much heartbreak.
I think, based on what I've heard on sports radio, that would be a successful season for the Sixers because right now they can't get past the second round. So if they were to get to the finals and lose, the feeling would be that the window's still open. You can stick with the core. Maxi's probably shown that he's for real. And then it's just Harden go, and what can you get for Harden? And if not, what else do you put on the team? So I think for the Sixers, as a fan base, there would be some heartbreak because I feel like whoever comes out of the West, you got to feel like you're better than. But in the end, it would be okay. And that next year feel will be there. If they lose in the second round to Boston, presuming chalk holds, that I think will be catastrophic in Philadelphia sports lexicon right up to the first Eagles game. Well,
yep.
What were to happen? Let's say this superstarless Brooklyn Nets were able to do what many people think that they can't do and upset the Philadelphia 76ers in the first round. Obi, you guys being the 76ers fan and the closest to Philly, how would this land?
Doc Rivers would be fired before he even left the arena.
You took the word right out of my mouth. Literally, that's where I was going to go. 40 interviews over.
just
done. Sorry, Doc, because, and I would imagine that Harden gets moved to Houston. He's talked about, I think it's a free, he will be gone. Harden will be gone and Rivers will be gone if they were to lose to Brooklyn. And I wouldn't even be surprised if they found a deal to try to move Maxey for I don't know who, but for somebody.
They probably blow the whole team up. Maybe keep Embiid and try and, but everybody else they try and blow up the core and rebuild.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, that would be something.
We're going to trade. We're going to trade you Maxey and get Butler back, who was the best player to play with Embiid.
No, we're going to hold on to Butler as long as we can and hope he retires a Heat because he's been fantastic. And you know what, Butler, and you could attend to this, Obi. He's one of those ideal players in which going up against him, you hate him. When he's on your team, he's you ride or die. You would run through a wall with him for him.
I would go so far as to say, having had him on my team, I still love him. I think he is one of the most
or after right or afterwards.
He is one of the most underrated players in the NBA. I think that he doesn't get considered a superstar, and maybe he's not, but he's the first guy off the list. Then I am sorry, he is I think one of the most underrated players because he adds that LeBron maturity managing the team factor that we know Durant doesn't have. Like he brings that, and you could see it, and that's why he's a perfect Heat, because that's what Pat Riley wants down there from his best player. Pat Riley wants his best player to also be the extra coach, and it works out so well for him on the Heat. But yeah, I think he's a guy you just don't get until you've had him as a player on your team. You're like, oh, Butler, I get it. All right, I see it.
Yeah. So we guess we can kind of wrap up NBA and move on to other things. But I did want to make my pick here because I'm really going out there and really going with the kind of Hollywood aspect to this. This past season, well, I mean, we're finishing up the season, but overall, this past season, what was the memorable kind of achievement that had happened?
The most points by Mr. James.
Right. Albeit that I have the Milwaukee Bucks coming out of the East and winning the NBA Finals as my head. That's my head pick.
Mm-hmm.
I think we are going to get a Kareem team finals. Lakers, Bucks. Ooh. My heart, because the uphill battle if LeBron were to lose, the uphill battle that I would have to continue to climb. It would be too stressful. So my head is the Bucks, my heart is the Lakers. I'm gonna ride my Connecticut winning the championship pick momentum, and hopefully that carries me to the pros.
Fair enough.
All right, so we'll see.
April foolishness.
Right. Okay, so next up we have we want to go into baseball opening week, or NHL, or any other topics you guys want to bring up? Where do we want to go next?
We could head into baseball. We got that full swing now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we have we're a week into the season. The Phillies are off to a slow start. Mets are off to a slow start, and the Yankees, not really sure what to make out of them. It looks like it's going to be a long season for them, but could be. But it's 8 games out of 162. So is there really any kind of judgment that we can make on any of this yet?
So I like to kind of think of this, I know they've moved it to 17 games, but it used to be 16 games season in the NFL, 162 games in baseball. Every 10 games is the equivalent of one NFL game. 5 and 5. So you won one half of a game, you lost another half a game for the Mets. The Yankees 6 and 3, and they won 2 quarters, a little bit more than they. Very tight here. I mean, I don't believe in Tampa, so if I'm a Yankee fan, I'm not worried about Tampa Bay with a 9-0 start. But it's so hard to read anything. 3 games you can buy. Well, I still talk about the Yankees like they're owned by Hal's dad. Like, they'll buy some runs in the middle of the season, but they don't. So that's just me being old.
Yeah, especially since the teams that do that would be the Mets now.
Yes.
Uncle Stevie does what George used to do in his prime back in the day. His most, especially at his most unhinged in the 80s.
Which he might want to think about starting to do soon. Just saying.
Yeah, and I mean, when the average age of your starting rotation is 36, you're asking for problems, but didn't think it would be this fast. But also, it's early, so I don't really think it's panic mode yet for any of these teams. But just something feels a little off so far with the Mets. It seems like. Not sure what it is, if it's the pitching or something else. Just something doesn't feel quite right yet, but it's still early. What do you think?
I feel like we thought we were going to get something special, and we're getting an average baseball team that has some guys who will be coming back, and they get a couple of 7-game win streaks in here without a matching losing streak, and all of a sudden 14 games over 500. okay, 18. So it's still very doable, but the expectation that was set was Pete Alonso was, Pete Alonso was going to be chasing 62, and these old pitchers were going to come out in their Cy Young form, and every game was going to be saved with a song. It was just the expectations were enormous, and they can't live up to those expectations. And as a Met fan, having expectations is always shocking to begin with.
Yeah.
I think one of the things are minus, the obvious and guys not being in the lineup and or rotation and or bullpen, the energy and the fun that they were having all last year isn't there. Is it due to the pop of the balloon that was the injury to Diaz? Maybe not. But I don't think there is that yes, there's a buzz, but like with the guys out and not having the rhythm that they were expecting to have between the guys in the rotation, the guys in the lineup, trying to figure out the DH spot. It's just the question marks are beginning. Yes, it is extremely early. They have again a tough stretch coming up with the Dodgers or Padres this series and the Dodgers next week. And look, it's just really we expect the Mets to go far, and the minute one little thing happens, then I think there is that freak out because we haven't proven that we can sustain a devastating blow, whether it be injury or extreme loss in a playoff series, which we just had, and we're going to see how we respond to that, which is fitting of going up against the Padres in this 3-game series, and we'll just see how they carry on. But it is early. But they do need to address things quickly, both pitching wise, offensively, defensively. I think they're just fine. But some of these question marks need to start being answered quickly because look, I mean, the Braves aren't going to go away. We'll see how Philly kind of gets the ball rolling there. Marlins and Nationals, we don't expect much from them, and we'll see how it goes. But yes, not all hope is lost. It's still barely the middle of April. We got tons of baseball to play.
Yeah.
I will say on the fun factor, I don't know. As a fan, I always thought Conforto just brought a lot of that fun energy to a team. Just that's the one guy I wonder for that fun factor. And, that can be infectious to a team if that's the kind of guy who's missing. And that might be the kind of guy who they need. Just somebody a little more relaxed to kind of give that team a little bit less uptightedness. Because I think their fun is also they had expectations.
Yep. You don't think Lindor fits the fun role?
I don't think Lindor fits the fun role because Lindor has always had that pressure of coming to New York, and I always feel like we're still like remembering every time he comes up to bat. I just remember that first season he's been there, and I'm always like, oh wow, he's not hitting 198 every time I look.
You just think of thumbs down.
I'm just thinking this. I'm like, oh, he's much better. Yeah, he's not as good as we thought he was going to be, but he's not the garbage he was when he first started. That's part of my problem with Lindor. It's not his fault. The numbers are much better than they were that first season since then, but it's just that shadow is always there for me with him.
Okay. Yeah, I mean the with the Mets, like in fun, like guys like Alonso's a fun guy. Last year, Escobar is, but I kind of he goes with his play. So and we know Diaz is a fun guy. We know some, and that maybe it is more of a detriment than we realize, and it's just too soon to actually come to fruition for the team. But maybe that is, and sometimes it happens. And we made the moves in the offseason to try and or I say in the offseason, it was barely the offseason. We were in spring training. And we'll see how it plays out very early. I'm not really kind of calling for the life preserver just yet.
Yeah, it's 10. We're 10 games in. The Mets are 5-5. Tampa being 9-0 is the biggest surprise so far. But they're really, but otherwise it's, and we're down about 30 minutes with the average game time with the pitch clock so far.
Yeah. So that seems to be working. Occasionally, you get a weird strike. Stolen bases are up. I don't know if it's bringing eyes to the games. Like that's what we're not hearing about. We know the time's down. What are the ratings doing? Are they?
Well, it's hard to get ratings when all your local teams are blacked out, and everyone has to go to all these backdoor channel, pun intended, ways of getting your games. It's hard to get an accurate reading.
Yeah, I mean it's, as far as ratings go, it's almost with that factor in mind and how all the hoops needed to jump through for local teams. But at least we're lucky in the in New Jersey, New York, and Philly, where the RSNs are mostly accessible. For at least for the baseball teams. With Yes and SNY and NBC Sports Philly. But with the Bally's disaster that's affecting half the league, where even if you have a cable subscription or whatever thing, where you just aren't getting them. So it's hard to grow and this has been, I don't care about pitch clock, how big the bases are, the shift, none of that. The biggest issue with Major League Baseball, and even with the Bally's bankruptcy, even that's probably going to play out over the course of the season, where now they're picking and choosing which teams they're paying based on the contract status. So it's going to be a while before the courts sort that out. But you can't become fans if you can't grow your game if people can't see it. If people can't see your games, you're not going to grow fans. They need to figure this out. And if this doesn't sort out over the next few months, then NBA and NHL have an even bigger issue in the fall. But we'll see. But we'll see how that all goes. The quicker Bally's goes down and MLB can just take back all the rights, the better.
Yes.
Yeah. So another event that we had this past weekend was the Masters, where Jon Rahm came back from behind and beat Brooks Koepka to win the Masters.
Yes, I wish I could tell you it was exciting. I tried to watch it, and Mother Nature had other plans. So sometimes Mother Nature is going to win, and so that made it difficult to watch. But I did follow it, thanks to the wonderful world of apps, and was excited to see that. I did have Rahm 900 plus 950. Go me. But I don't think it was also all that surprising that he did win. He's been hitting this. Are we allowed to say snot out of the ball here on this network? Yes, we are.
Snot, I think we can go with.
Yeah, so he's been really and Koepka's been having a good season in the LIV, as far as I'm aware. But the question was, can the LIV guys play the last 18 holes? And at least for Koepka, he couldn't. He kind of choked. On the other hand, we had old man Mickelson do the exact opposite. Had I think the best final round of the tournament. So
he put a 65 up.
Yeah. So I mean, that is just saying that it was just Koepka in this case, and there's a difference between playing in the first or the last group and a few groups away. You start making a move, and you're feeling. By the time you start making a move, your confidence overweighs any nerves, and that's obvious, especially when you won a few things, which obviously happened for Phil. And then Tiger looked like he was in pain from the first time I saw him in practice, and obviously couldn't complete the thing. But it looks like a man who had a severe leg injury that's never going to quite heal. Is what he looks like. So he's out there and he's giving fans what they want, but I would love to see him have one more, lightning in the bottle. But I would not put my money on that at this point.
I will say that even for him to even make the cut was an accomplishment, and that tied, I believe, the all-time record of 23 straight Masters tournaments that he played in. That Tiger has made the cut. So that in itself is an accomplishment. The thing with Tiger relative to other aging golfers is that we're used to golfers that their game changes a bit, but they can still be competitive. Look at Phil at 50, where he finished tied for second in the Masters at age 52. But Tiger trained and like a pro athlete. He was essentially a pro athlete playing against a bunch of scrubs in his prime, before the first car accident.
Right.
So it's hard in the sense of, wow, he's still young for a golfer, but struggling this much, but also he's old for a pro athlete, which is what he was. So he is aged like a pro athlete, and the car accidents, the personal stuff, and everything else thrown on top of that, for the fact that he's even showing up at these tours is impressive. But this is still quite sad to see, where he can't even walk for 4 rounds.
It is. I think to your point about him being a pro athlete, when he was driving the ball farther than everybody else, people took notice. And I would argue that more golfers are more in shape now. I mean, like
yes.
Rory and Rahm, not as much, but we saw, but Rory's in shape. Spieth is in shape. You still got some skinny guys like Zalatoris and Hovland, but most of the guys who are good are strong and they look strong. I mean,
Koepka's jacked.
Koepka is jacked.
Mm-hmm.
Koepka looks like he could play linebacker. Thank you. Koepka is a monster. I was trying to think of Shambo, and that's when I forgot Koepka. But so they're definitely dudes who like, this is the way to go. And it will be interesting to see, for those people who watch the Champions Tour, how many of them can get to the Champions Tour and compete, because they, like you say, their style of game has to change. Like we see it all the time with pitchers.
Yes.
They learn to paint corners more, learn how to get calls more, get maybe a little more movement in their curveball, because their fastball ain't what it used to be.
Yeah.
Or quarterback with his new pitch.
Yes.
More quarterbacks who are more running quarterbacks, can they, as they age, learn how to throw, how to stay in the pocket? Same kind of thing.
Yes. So exactly, another great example. So we have seen it before. These other guys are going to have to sort of make those decisions. I think the second car accident, the first car accident, I think he came back. He won the Masters after that. He started looking like he could play again. Yes, he didn't look like he could dominate, but he looked as good as Phil looked.
Yes.
And it looked like, every now and then there was going to be a day where he was going to put 4 rounds together and win either a tournament. And if that tournament happened to be a major, another major.
At least finish some top 5s.
Right. And even when he came back after the first accident, he didn't win a major for a while, but he did become the number 1 player in the world again. Yeah. But this is just a permanent injury on that leg, and it's just.
Yeah, I mean, he almost died in that car accident.
Yes.
In this accident. So when we talk about that is also worth noting. So for him to come from an accident he could very well have died in, to even compete at major events, to go to Augusta and make the cut, it's similar to watching Tom Brady the past few years, where he's clearly diminished, nowhere near what he was, but he still had some moments. But even now, it looks like it's finally running out. I always thought that Tiger would make the transition. He would just rake it on the Champions Tour. Although after this car accident, I don't even know if that's physically possible for him to do. I mean, he surprised us before, coming back to win the Masters a few years back. So, but just how is that even possible? Physically in his condition, we don't know.
I'm go on, Brandon.
No, I wanted to actually tie 2 points that you made. JD, you brought up Brady, and Obi, you brought up the kind of what Tiger had done, being in shape, and how that kind of influenced guys after that. That's what Brady has done. Essentially, right? Look at these guys now that are trying to play into their 40s, mid 40s. Even look at Russell Wilson and how dedicated he is. Obviously, not to the success of level as Brady, but that determination to try and keep their bodies as pure and healthy as they can to play as long as they can. Yeah, I think those Brady and Tiger are really kind of one and the same in that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't think that he's going to dominate the championship series. I don't think it's going to happen. I also wonder if Tiger has a different path planned for himself in that he's got his son, who's a decent golfer from what we've been able to see when he's been out there. If
his swing is just like his dad.
Yeah. So if
everything is the same.
If he chooses to play golf, I mean, will Tiger be involved in that as more than a spectator? I mean, I honestly don't know if he could caddy. Like I've been watching, I don't even think.
I don't even know if he's physically able to caddy at this point.
But so, is there something that is going to be involved in that?
He can't even walk without the bag. You think he can walk with the bag?
No, there was one point on Thursday where they showed Tiger. Now, upper body, he is still like Shannon Sharp, but he's got one hand on the golf bag, the white shirt, sweating like he's in a wet t-shirt contest, and the other hand on his club. And this is Thursday, and he just looked exhausted, just like, and on Thursday he was playing well, and you just even seeing him on Thursday, it's like, is he going to make the cut? And to make the, like you said, to make the cut, to get that through, that was just an impressive showing for a guy who's physically, I like to see him when he plays with his son or in the pro-ams, he's making courses and stuff. So that's where he's going with this. But he was I
think he should go into some type of team ownership.
Yeah. Maybe he'll buy Liv and then bring Liv back to the PGA.
The Saudis have unlimited amount of money, so not even Tiger can compete with that. It's just a bottomless pit of money.
That's right. We need more money. Turn those wells on.
Liquidate some of those jewels you have.
All right.
Yeah. So, and just real quick, we can also mention the NHL is wrapping up this week. The Devils have a chance still at winning the Metropolitan Division with 2 games left. Carolina is currently in first place. They play their game in hand tonight, so they still have a chance at winning the division. I believe the next Devils Point clinches home ice against the Rangers, and we have the Bruins, who have already clinched who already have the record for most wins in a season. They're now 1 point away from getting the most points in a season. They're sitting at 131 right now. So the 132 is the record. The 77 Montreal Canadiens. They have the last game on Thursday or Friday is against Montreal. Montreal this year is absolute garbage, but it'll be interesting to see if it comes down to that. But with this NHL, I've normally been a fan of the new NHL playoff format with the playoffs within the division, but teams like the Rangers and the Devils, this should not be a first round playoff matchup, especially with the. I mean, yes, you have the Bruins the Bruins in Carolina, but it would be essentially a 3 and a 4 seed playing each other in the first round of the playoffs. Is that good for the league?
Well, as a casual hockey fan,
I think yes.
I don't know. What I do know is that the winner of the President's Cup has amazing. It's like the exact opposite of basketball, right? Like basketball, we know that the first round is pretty much chalk. The second round is probably going to be chalk, except for, you get, and, as I think I've mentioned on more than one occasion, I'm kind of okay with that sort of like expecting the better team to win. Whereas hockey, although less random than baseball, feels very arbitrary. So
yeah.
I don't like this format because if you're playing teams that you play a lot, that's more likely to have upsets because of familiarity.
Mhm.
So on that alone, I forget the matchup situation where Boston should be playing a team like, I guess it would have been the Islanders.
They're probably they're looking at the current standings. I believe they're in line to play the Islanders
In the new format or the old format?
in the new format.
Right, okay.
Which as far as 1 versus 8, that'll come out to be about the same. It's more the middle is where the mess is as far as playoff format.
Okay.
And I'm pulling up the NHL standings right now.
Yeah, it looks like it's.
I don't know how to properly screen share. So
That's okay. I have them on mine. So it's either Florida or the Islanders. Okay. So they still, as long as they're
Florida
still
Islanders, Pittsburgh is a point out, so they might they still have a chance of sneaking in.
okay.
Yeah, but with the so we have Boston with 131, Carolina, in the Atlantic Division, Carolina leading the Metropolitan with 109, then Devils right behind them 108, Rangers at 106, and then you go back to Toronto at 105 points. They're second in the Atlantic Division, currently in line to play Tampa at 96 points, third in their division. And the two wild cards currently are Florida and the Islanders with 91 points. So we have the Toronto and Tampa first round matchup locked in. It's currently looking like Devils and the Rangers, and you have Boston versus the Islanders or Florida, and Carolina versus the Islanders or Florida is what we're looking at in the East right now. In the West, we have Vegas on top with 107 points. Then let's see,
Edmonton behind them at 105.
Edmonton at 105.
Colorado
Pacific Division. Yeah, this is all in the Pacific Division. We have Vegas 107, Edmonton 105, the LA Kings 100, and Seattle in clinched one wild card spot at 98 points. In the Central, we have Colorado at 104 points, defending Stanley 100, and that last wild card spot currently is Winnipeg in that spot at 91 points, and then you have Calgary a point behind them, so they still have a shot. And for the fact that it's interesting that the Rangers at 108 points, currently fourth in the East, would be first in the West right now. And there's a lot more randomness, as you said, Obi, in the NHL playoffs, where the President's Trophy is like a kiss of death, where the team with the best regular season record, all of the teams who the Bruins just passed with their 63rd win, the 62 win, the two teams that had the record previously with 62 wins, the 96 Detroit Red Wings and the 2019 Tampa Bay Lightning, neither one of them won the cup. Tampa didn't even make it out of the first round. They lost to Columbus. Something like that would never happen in the NBA.
Right. Yeah. Which, that's, and like I said, I prefer that. I understand why people like chaos. I get it. I totally get it. I prefer feeling like my champ probably was the best team. We still have it happen sometimes in the NFL, but in the NFL, it always feels like some team got hot usually before the playoffs started, and you're like, well, maybe they really were this good all season. Where in hockey or baseball, it's just, now the playoffs start and it gets a little crazy. But, the other big story, obviously, is the season that Connor McDavid had and how will Edmonton do behind him.
Yeah, he's had, I think,
the only 300 goal team in the league this year. Essentially, with him putting them over the top like that.
Well, 64 goals for him, but there's also Drysdale, who has 50 goals, or 50 points. So no goals. So yeah, there's a lot there, but just between the two of them, 64 and 51.
Yeah, we have. Let's see.
There's nearly a third of
David
it.
has 151
Yeah.
points. That's goals plus assists. That in itself McDavid is the first one to get even. He has 64 goals, 87 assists, 151 points. First NHL player to pass 150 points since Mario Lemieux in '96, and he's getting to the point where since the '80s, the only players that have hit that because of garbage goaltending throughout the decade, there were insane, crazy scoring numbers throughout the NHL in the '80s. But really, Gretzky and Lemieux are the only ones in the past 30 years that have gotten anywhere near these numbers. And it's David Pasternak from Boston just scored a 60th.
And so that includes great players like Ovechkin and the kid out of Pittsburgh have not gotten these kind of numbers.
No, Ovechkin has the goal scoring, but not the assists. Ovechkin did score 65 goals, where he was the only other recent player to pass 60. But he did score 65 goals in, I think, 2017 or 2018, somewhere along those lines.
Okay.
But we're let's go. Do we have any final thoughts before we wrap this up, Brendan?
I just I guess in the middle of the season in my long futures bet that I am now 3 for 3: Georgia, Kansas City, and UConn. I have Vegas and Vegas with the NHL Stanley Cup champion. Little bit of little out there, but
right.
I had made it in December, so I got to stick with that. Pick integrity, as they say. I'm going to go Vegas. Vegas. You know what? Vegas, and because I'm a homer more so in this sport than any of the others. Not as objective. I'll go Vegas and the Rangers in the Stanley Cup final.
Okay. I'm not, since you still
the
need
East, I think, is going to beat themselves up a little bit.
Yeah.
A lot of it, actually.
Now, the Rangers have been playing kind of rocky the last 2 weeks. They've been a little uneven. Are you confident? So you are still that confident going into the playoffs?
Well, the funny thing is that my connection now with the Devils and the whole season-long bet that Scott and I had about I thought the Devils weren't going to make the playoffs. So this is my my karma here for being so down and negative on the Devils, is that I get them in the first round. So it's fitting. Yeah. It's going to be a really tough battle. Great for our area, honestly. That doesn't have
must watch.
Right. To get the Rangers that over the last decade or so, and more so since the Devils Stanley Cups. I mean, the Rangers have been better. So now that the Devils are kind of holding up their end of the bargain, so to speak, this matchup in the first round is fantastic for our area to get hockey back in the spotlight more. So as, kind of like football and the Knicks and Yankees and stuff like that, or, the Mets, got to throw them in there. And I think it's going to be great.
All right. Obi, your final thoughts before we wrap up?
I think that we had a Masters weekend, usually one of my favorite weekends of the year. Usually falls at a good time. This year I was a little disappointed because of weather. Can't help that. But it's also really kind of the beginning of baseball that we touched on. So baseball fans are excited. They've been getting their first taste. And basketball fans are excited as the playoffs about to begin. Hockey fans are excited. Hockey's about to begin. It is the beginning of the real sports seasons, kind of, so to speak.
Yeah.
We got football season and then we got sports season. And this is kind of sports season to me. So,
and the NFL draft's coming up in a few weeks.
NFL draft's coming up.
Rodgers is going to come to town any minute now. It's going to be great.
Yeah. Hey, it's now just a game of chicken between those two, between the Packers and the Jets.
I mean, and It's it's almost what did they say for both Jets and Lamar? Most teams are saying they're going to make the trade makes more sense after the draft, so you're trading next year's draft picks and not this year's number one.
Yeah.
So we'll see what all of that comes out to when all is said
I'm
and done.
thinking day two. I'm thinking day 2 of the draft after the Jets have used the number 13 pick. Is might be when that trade finally happens.
Right when their round 2 pick is up, but they trade for Rodgers and the Packers get that second and the future first, something to that extent.
Yeah, we'll see how this all shakes out. Thanks to all of you out there. Like and subscribe. Let him to Stream Punk Sports on YouTube. Also, Stream Punk Cinema. Check out Tales from the Sports Den starting in a bit. I don't have their topic in front of me. I apologize. And thanks again to all of you out there. Like, subscribe, and comment. What are your big sports events you're looking forward to over the next few weeks with the NHL, the NBA playoffs, Major League Soccer, baseball going in full swing? What are you looking forward to the most? And let us know in the comments. Obi, Brandon, thanks again. Thanks to all of you out there, and stay awesome.